welcome. Have a nice day. Today is Sunday, 6th of May 2025. Starting the news with the world news, including top advisor Elon Musk hopes for zero tariff situation between United States, Europe, amid reciprocal tariffs. Israel admits mistakes avoiding medical killings in Gaza as video shows final moments of Palestine emergency workers. Hands off protesters rally against President Trump. Musk insists across the United States. Trump tariffs kick into effect. Allies sound warning. China takes jab. Key updates as global trade war escalates. Never let a good crisis go waste. Pakistan sees silver lining aim at 29%. United States tariffs on country's export. Imagine if I had Obama slams Trump over targeting the students, journalists, and law firms. Now, with the brief from the Hindu newspaper, Zelensky meets European military leaders to plan for peacekeeping forces. In this photo provided by the Ukrainian presidential press office, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky meets with the chief of the staff of the French armed forces, Thierry Bourhad, and Britain's chief of the defense staff, Admiral Tony Radakin, in Kyiv, Ukraine. The weekend discussions are planned to set the ground for a further meeting between the defense ministers in Brussels and the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with the leaders of the British and French armed forces in the Kyiv on Saturday, April-5, 2025, to discuss the potential deployment of a multinational peacekeeping force into Ukraine, despite the reluctance of the United States President Donald Trump to provide security guarantees. The United Kingdom Ministry of Defense said officials addressed the structure, size, and composition of any future resurgence forces, while the chief of the defense staff, Anthony Radakin, emphasized that the United Kingdom would look to build on the formidable capabilities of the Ukrainian army and put them in the strongest possible position to deter Russian aggression. The weekend discussions are planned to set the ground for further meeting between the defense ministers in the Brussels and the Ukraine Defense Contact Group on Friday. Britain has been promoting the ideas of the European-led peacekeeping force for Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire, but it has said such a force needed a United States backstop to make it credible in the face of the possible Russian reprisals. Two British MPs detained by Israel, says a British foreign minister. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy said Israel has detained two British members of parliament and refused entry to the officials who were visiting as a part of the parliamentary delegation. Israel detains prime British MPs suspected of anti-Israel plans sparking diplomatic tension, says British Foreign Minister David Lammy. Israel has detained two British members of a parliament and refused entry to the officials who were visiting as a part of the parliamentary delegation, British Foreign Minister David Lammy said in a statement late on Saturday, April-5, 2025. Sky News, citing a statement from Israeli Immigration Ministry, says that the detained parliamentarians are Labour MPs Yon Yang and Abdisan Mohammed, who were rejected because they were suspected of plans to document the activities of security forces and spread anti-Islam, anti-Israel hatred. President Draupadi Murmu gives assent to Waqf Amendment Bill 2025. President Draupadi Murmu has given her assent to Waqf Amendment 2025. The bill was passed by Parliament after 3 days of the intense debate in both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. President Draupadi Murmu has given her assent to the Waqf Amendment Act 2025, the Union Law Minister had said in a notification on Saturday of April-5, 2025. The bill was passed by Parliament after 3 days of intense debate in both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. The legislation has been challenged by All India Majlis Ittihadul Muslimin AIMIM Chief Asaduddin Owaisi and Congress MP Muhammad Javed in the Supreme Court on the grounds of violating constitutional principles. The government, however, categorically denied the amended law interfered with the religious practice of Muslims. Waqf Bill narrow margin of defeat in the Rajya Sabha surprised opposition that is making an intervention in the Lok Sabha on Wednesday. Home Minister Amit Shah had said that Waqf, a charitable endowment, and the Waqf donor can only be from the Muslim community. Story so far. President Draupadi Murmu on Saturday, once again, April 5, 2025, gave her assent to the Waqf Amendment Act 2025 Act. The Union Law Ministry said in a notification the contentious legislation was passed by Parliament this week after two marathon debates in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Originally introduced last year, the law was earlier referred to as Joint Parliamentary Committee (JPC) chaired by the Bharatiya Janata Party BJP MP Jagdambika Pal for Security. The report was laid before both the House on February 13, 2025. What does the law aim to do? Is actually in Islamic law, Waqf refers to the property dedicated in the name of the God, and that is Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the religious or charitable purposes. Proceeds from such properties are typically used to maintain mosques, fund educational institutions, or support the poor. Once the designated as Waqf, the property becomes the inalienable. It cannot be sold, inherited, or gifted. The Waqf Act 1995 Act and its 2013 amendments under the United Progressive Alliance UPA government created the legal framework for managing Waqf properties and established state Waqf boards. The bill violates fundamental rights enshrined under Article 14, 15, 21, 25, 26, 29, 30, and 300A of the Constitution. It curtails the religious and cultural autonomy of Muslims, enables arbitrary executive interference, and undermines the minority rights to manage their religious and charitable institutions. Reads the petition. Now going towards the Hindustan Times newspaper states that on the Prime Minister's Lanka visit, tripartite deal signed with the United Arab Emirates for energy hub. The tripartite memorandum of understanding was among the 7 agreements unveiled after a meeting between the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the President Anurag Kumar Dissanayake, Colombo, India, and the Sri Lanka, roped in the United Arab Emirates on the Saturday for an agreement to develop an energy hub at Trincomalee, including a multi-project pipeline and further development of the World War II oil tank from partly held by the Sri Lankan subsidiary of Indian Oil Corporation. The tripartite memorandum of the understanding was among the 7 agreements unveiled after a meeting between the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the President Anurag Kumar Dissanayake, and marks the first time that India and the United Arab Emirates will join hands for energy project in the South Asia. The United Arab Emirates' envoy to Sri Lanka, Khalid Nasir Al-Amiri, joined the event via the Ministry of Union was announced. The United Arab Emirates UAE is a strategic partner of India in the energy space, and it was therefore an ideal partner for this exercise that is being done for the first time in this region, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri told a media briefing. Meeting cookie groups in the first joint peace talks. The 5-hour meeting chaired by the Ministry of Home Affairs MHA advisor for the Northeast A.K. Mishra in the national capital aimed in the final resolution to the ethnic conflict. Representatives of Manipur's Warning Meeting and Cookie Zo community held their first joint meeting in the nearly 2 years on Saturday, engaging in the peace talks mediated by the central government. The 5-hour meeting chaired by the Ministry of Home Affairs MHA advisor for the Northeast A.K. Mishra in the national capital aimed to find a resolution to the ethnic conflict that has plagued the state since May 2023. The talks, which also involved Intelligence Bureau officials, the Manipur Chief Secretary and a senior state police officer, marked crucial steps towards reconciliation between the groups. The conflict, rooted in the long-standing issue of land rights, political representation, and cultural identity, has claimed nearly 250 lives and displaced thousands over the past 23 months. According to the officials familiar with the meeting, the Ministry of Home Affairs put forward 6 key points as a resolution taking into account the views and concerns of both communities. These points include appealing to the people to refrain from attacking the other community, welcoming government steps to facilitate the return of internally displaced persons, addressing long-term and contentious issues through consultation with the communities, prioritizing development activities in the neglected areas, and urging the cooperation to normalize the traffic on national and state highways. Now, going towards the economy of the country from the business point of view, Reserve Bank of India (RBI's) monetary policy panel may cut repo rate by 25 bps to 6%. Here's why: the six-member rate setting panel in the meeting aimed at heightened uncertainty in the global market following the recent announcements of reciprocal tariffs by the United States. President Donald Trump. While RBI is unlikely to revive the inflation forecast, its outlook on GDP growth in the wake of the United States tariff announcements will be closely watched, economists said. The Reserve Bank of India (RBI) six-member Monetary Policy Committee (MPC) is likely to cut the repo rate, the key policy rate, by 25 basis points (BPS) in its upcoming meeting scheduled from April 7 to 9. The rate setting panel may also change the monetary policy stance from the neutral to accommodative, signaling further reduction in the repo rate. The six-member rate setting panel is meeting amid heightened uncertainty in the global market following the recent announcements of the reciprocal tariffs by the United States President Donald Trump. There are fears that high tariff rates may lead into inflation, increase in the trade tensions, and lower growth in the world economy. While RBI is unlikely to revise the inflation forecast, its outlook on the GDP growth in the wake of the United States tariffs announcements will be closely watched, economists said. What to expect from the upcoming MPC meeting? The RBI MPC is likely to deliver 25 bps cut in the repo rate for the second consecutive time in the policy which will be announced on the April 9. Post this reduction, the repo rate and the growth at which the RBI lends money to banks to meet their short-term funding needs will stand at 6% from 6.25% on the basis of points on 1 basis point. BPS is 1/100th of the percentage point. We expect RBI to cut policy rates by 25 bps in April policy, said Gaurav Sengupta, chief economist at IDFC First Bank. Domestic data has aligned to make a way for the Monetary Policy Committee (MPC) to lower rates, further characterized by easing inflation and growth, whilst depreciation pressure on the rupee has eased significantly, said Radhika Rao, executive director and senior economist, DBS Bank. January-February inflation is taking an average of 3.9% below the RBI's quarterly projection for January-March 2025. The Reserve Bank of India has a projected consumer price-based inflation (CPI) at 4.8% for the growth quarter of financial year 2025. In the month of February meeting, the MPC for the first time in nearly 5 years had reduced the repo rate by 25 bps to 6.25%. The decision was taken amid easing inflation and concerns over the slowing growth. Cracks in slabs, surface deformations, rutting to potholes. How construction defects in National Highway keep India's road accident number high. A series of significant defects identified in various national highways and its projects across India from 2019-20 to 2023-24 have a direct bearing on the creation of black spots or hazardous points on the national highway where the accidents take place repetitively. Settlements in the highways mean the displacement of the pavement surface or underlying soil, which results in an uneven or depressed surface. Loss on the vehicle control. Potholes and the surface deformations. These sudden changes in the road surface can jolt vehicles, especially at the high speeds. This can cause the drivers to lose steering control, leading to the swerving, lane departures, and even rollers. For two-wheelers, potholes are particularly dangerous and can easily cause the loss of balance and a pulse. Now, cracks, while smaller cracks might not immediately cause the loss of control, larger cracks or networks of cracks like alligator cracking can create uneven surfaces affecting the tire grip and vehicle stability. They can also worsen into the potholes over the time. Damaged vehicles, potholes, and surface deformations. Impacting these defects can cause a significant damage to tires, blowouts, punctures of wheels, bent rims, suspension systems, and alignments. A sudden tire blowout or suspension failure at a high speed can be catastrophic. reduced visibility and increased risk. Potholes filled with water. During rain, potholes can fill with water, making them difficult to see. Drivers might hit them unexpectedly or sever suddenly to avoid them, endangering themselves and can other road users. The splash from hitting a water-filled pothole can also temporarily reduce visibility. Impact on the traffic flow and behavior. The pressure of these defects often forces drivers to slow down suddenly, make abrupt lane changes to avoid them, or drive erratically. This unpredictable behavior increases the risk of the rear end collisions and side swipes. Deterioration leading to more severe issues. Initial small crackers can allow water to sweep in the root structure, weakening the base at some pace. This leads to further deterioration, the formation of larger potholes and more extensive surface deformations over time, increasing the hazard. Well, the situation in India is that India has high number of road accidents, and poor road design and construction are significant contributing factors. Ministerial acknowledgement. Union Minister of Road Transport and Highways Nitin Gadkari has repeatedly blamed poor road designs and faulty detailed project reports (DPRs) for the high accident rates. He has stated that the small civil mistakes and defective planning by engineers are major issues. Common defects. Inspections of the national highway projects have revealed various defects, including cracks in the concrete slabs, surface deformations, rutting, and potholes. Quality of material and construction. Issues are like the use of poor quality material and inadequate construction practices contribute to the early development of these road defects. Accountability. There has been a lack of accountability for poor quality work. However, the government is now considering measures like extending the defect liability period for contractors to 10 years and blacklisting the companies responsible for substandard roads. In conclusion, the construction defects assume shattered cracks, surface deformations, and potholes directly compromise the safety and drivability of national highways in India. They contribute to loss of the vehicle control, damage to vehicle, reduced visibility, and erratic driving behavior, all of which are key factors in the country's alarmingly high road accident numbers. Addressing these fundamental issues in road construction and maintenance is crucial for improving road safety and reducing fatalities. Now going to science attack, we have first alien beehive invading beetle recorded in India. The study of morphological structure and genitalia confirmed the identity of the beetle as Echidna. The small hive beetle has been a threat to the honeybee industry worldwide. An alien or non-native beetle threatening the honeybee industry globally has been recorded for the first time in India. The small hive beetle Echidna was recorded from the moderately large colony of European honeybees or Apis mellifera in an apiary in the West Bengal's North 24 Paraganas district. The finding of by Chigmek Bisegupata, a scientist at the Zoological Survey of India, (SNSI), was published in the Kolkata-based Journal of Environment and Sociobiology. Since it was described from the sub-Saharan Africa in the 1867, the small hive beetle, oval-shaped, reddish brown, and 5 to 7 mm long, has dispersed and created havoc across the continents. In Asia, it was recorded in the Philippines, South Korea, and the China land less than a decade ago. The first probe to encounter the Saturn. The launch of the Atlas Centaur carrying the Pioneer 11 spacecraft on April 6, 1973. The initial objective of this flight was to explore the planet Jupiter and its environment. Launched on the month of April 6, 1973, Pioneer 11 was NASA's robotic space probe that studied Jupiter and Saturn. Pioneer 11, in fact, was the first spacecraft to make direct observations of Saturn and discover its rig is characteristics. You and a quick ride aboard a Pioneer 11. The late 1970 provided a rare alignment of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune that scientists wanted to use their advantage. Gravity assist also known as a signaling shots or planetary swing by spaceflight maneuvers that utilize the gravitational pull of a planet but to change the spacecraft's trajectory and velocity, thereby traveling further and faster while using up lesser fuel. During this particular alignment, which happens once in about 175 years, NASA planned to send a pair of Voyager spacecraft to study Jupiter and Saturn and explore Uranus and Neptune to its two if that was possible. Before that, they had to make sure that a spacecraft could survive passing the asteroid belt and the strong radiation belts of Jupiter. The Pioneer spacecrafts are Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11, while envisioned as pathfinders for the Voyagers. The launch. Following the successful launch of a Pioneer 10 on the March 2nd, 1972 to its Steven Pioneer 11, which was initially conceived as a backup, was launched on the April 6, 1973. It sped away from the Earth at a velocity of about 51,800 km per hour, matching the speed of the Steven in the interior. But 30 months Pioneer 10, the first spacecraft to travel beyond the orbits of Mars, had already passed the asteroid belt and was on its way to fly by Jupiter in December 1973. This meant that mission planners could tweak a Pioneer's 11 course after a Pioneer's 10 successful observations of Jupiter. Once a Pioneer 11 crossed the asteroid belt without incident in mid-March 1974, two course corrections were carried out within 50 days of each other in April, and the probe was retargeted in the May, such that it could use the Jupiter's gravity to make its way to Saturn. The new trajectory ensured a polar flyby of Jupiter, also taking Pioneer 11 much closer to the geared planet. Jupiter's red spot. NASA's Ames Research Center released this rectified Pioneer 11 photo showing Jupiter's great red spot. Photo was made while the spacecraft was 71,000 kilometers from the Jupiter. NASA released that this view of Jupiter's great red spot taken by Pioneer 11. The spacecraft was 544,000 kilometers from the Jupiter when the picture was taken. And this of the Saturn rings was made by Pioneer 11 at 4 p.m. on September 1st, 1979, as it neared the rings some 943,000 kilometers from the planet's surface. Climate advice from European Union discussed climate action within the Indian officials. Anthony Agotha, European Union Special Envoy for Climate and Environment. The environmental high-level talks come on the margins of a meeting between the Prime Minister and the European Commission in February and the upcoming Conference of Party 30 in November. Climate advisors representing Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden, and the European External Action Service (EEAS) held a series of a meeting in New Delhi. Earlier this week, the officials from the Prime Minister's office, the Ministers of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and New Renewable Energy, as well as representatives from the industry and research institutions. The joint diplomatic mission aimed to reinforce European Union-India cooperation on climate action, trade, and investment, particularly in the lead-up to future international climate negotiations. Organized in the coordination with the European Commission (EC), the talks come in the wake of the recent visit by the College of Commissioners in February, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced plans to expedite the conclusion of the India-European Union Free Trade Agreement by the end of the year. The talks assume heightened significance, followed by the United States decision under the administration of President Donald Trump to withdraw from the Paris Agreement for a second time in January 2025, and this week's launch of trade tariff war. Anthony Agotha, Special Envoy for Climate and Environment at the EEAS, emphasized the reliability of the European Union. Coming from the European Union, India do not have to like us. We do not have the monopoly on virtue, but neither on vice. What you see and what you can. We fulfill our treaties as Prime Minister Modi and the Election Commission President have reiterated. We are big democracies, huge pluralists, societies with an intent to uphold the multilateral order, Mr. Agotha said. The joint European Union mission aimed not only to underline the bloc's own steadfast commitment to its green transition, but also to strategize with India on the navigating the significant challenge the United States withdrawal presents to global climate governance and the goal as of the Paris Agreement. This context looms are large as negotiations prepared for Conference of Party 30 scheduled for Belgium, Brazil in November month of 2025, while the absence of the United States will heavily impact the negotiations. Gerhard Skildharaf, German Deputy Special Envoy for the International Climate Action, noted the existing constraints, stating there was limited money available. The United States withdrawal is expected to place additional strain on climate finance flows and intensify debates around the new collective quantified goal NCQG meant to be finalized at Conference of Party 30, referring the difficulty negotiations at the Conference of Party 29 in Baku. Mr. Skelter contested notions that the European Union had reduced ambition, while reiterating the European Union and its member states remain significant contributors to climate finance mobilized so far. At Conference of Party 29 in Baku, developed countries are committed to triple climate financing to developing countries from $100 billion to $300 billion annually by 2035 out of $1.35 trillion annually reportedly required to effectively combat climate change. Now from health, semaglutide reduces risk of cardiovascular events in patients with the type 2 diabetes, find study. Semaglutide used as an anti-diabetic and anti-obesity medication can cut the risks of heart attacks, strokes, and cardiovascular disease by 14%. The international study of which India was a part found diabetes management should not be focused narrowly on the blood sugar levels, but must concurrently work at protecting the cardiac and renal health too, states a recent study that found daily oral semaglutide, an anti-diabetic medication used for treatment of type 2 diabetes, and an anti-obesity medication are used for long-term weight management could cut the risk of heart attacks, strokes, and cardiovascular death by 14%. In a phase 3 trial of people with diabetes, the study called Saul tested Ribelsus Nordisk diabetes drug administered in oral form against a placebo in a trial participants already receiving standard medications. The study of this oral form of GLP-1 receptor agonists, GLP-1 arrays, was a multi-center, international randomized, double-blind, parallel group, placebo-controlled phase 3 cardiovascular outcomes trial with 9,650 people enrolled. In India, there were 32 centers and 788 people enrolled. Semaglutide was initially approved in June month of 2021 for chronic weight management in those with obesity or overweight and at least one weight or related conditions, including high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, or high cholesterol, in addition to the diet and increased exercise. A time to live on the evolution of heart attack treatment. The treatment of the STEMI, a medical emergency indicating a total blockage of an artery feeding the heart, is one of the most gratifying moments in the medicine. The emergency text message just before my phone rang had the heading STEMI alert and contained an EKG, which confirmed that the patient was having a heart attack. The ST evaluation myocardial infarct STEM indicated a total blockage of an artery feeding the heart. The ST evaluation is a marker on the EKG indicating the inability of the millions of the cells to produce ATP, the energy needed to carry out essential cellular functions, leading to impending cell death. Hospitals all over the world recognize this is an emergency and have a process to get the blood flow back to the dying heart. The standard of care is the restoration of blood flow to the heart within the 90 minutes of the patient's arrival at the hospital, also known as the short balloon time D2B time. The race against the time was on, and the ER physician's phone call gave me a brief patient history. The patient had begun having chest pain, and rather than call 911, called his wife and asked her to drive him to the ER. While she was driving, he abruptly collapsed in the passenger seat, probably secondary to an electrically unstable heart rhythm, causing the sudden death. Sudden death, unfortunately, occurs in the about 10% of stem first cases, and most of these patients don't make it to the hospital. What happened next to is not entirely clear, but when she saw him collapsing, his wife hit the brakes, causing him to hit the dashboard, which potentially acted as the chest thump, causing the electrically unstable rhythm to reset, and he came to. From the initial understanding of heart attack as a sudden, often fatal event requiring only bed rest, we have witnessed a remarkable transformation. The establishment of coronary care unit CCUs marked a turning point, significantly reducing early mortality by addressing life-threatening arrhythmias. The subsequent era of myocardial reperfusion, with the advent of the thrombolytic drugs and percutaneous coronary intervention (PCI), revolutionized the treatment by actively restoring blood flow to the damaged heart muscle. This had led to improving survival rates and better long-term outcomes. Today, the management of heart attacks involves a rapid diagnosis, timely intervention like the PCI and stenting, and a comprehensive approach to secondary prevention, including medications and lifestyle modifications. The journey of heart attack treatment is testament to medical innovation and there is a relentless pursuit of better patient care. While significant progress has been made, ongoing research continues to refine our understanding and treatment strategies, paving the way for the further improvement in the future. At last, there is a famous personality of India who was late Rabindranath Tagore, born on 7 May 1861 up to 7 August 1941, was a Bengali polymath who worked as a poet, writer, playwright, composer, philosopher, social reformer, and a painter of the Bengali Renaissance. He reshaped Bengali literature and music as well as the Indian art with a contextual modernism in the late 19th and early 20th century. Author of the profoundly sensitive, rich, and beautiful poetry of Gitanjali in 1913, Tagore became the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize in any category, and also the first lyricist to win the Nobel Prize in literature. Tagore's poetic songs were vivid as a spiritual and a mercurial, while his elegant prose and magical poetry were widely popular in the Indian subcontinent. He was a fellow of the Royal Asiatic Society, reported as the Board of the Bengal. Tagore was known by the Supreme Court's Gurudev, Kobi Guru, and Mr. Kobi. A Bengali Brahmin from Calcutta with the ancestral gentry roots to Burdwan district and Jessore, Tagore wrote a poetry as an 8-year-old. At the age of 16, he released his first substantial poems under the pseudonym Sunlight, which was seized upon the by literary authorities as a long-lost classic. By 1877, he graduated his first short stories and dramas, published under the real name as a humanist, universalist, internationalist, and an ardent critic of nationalism. He denounced the British Raj and advocated independence from the British. As an exponent of the Bengali Renaissance, he advanced a vast canon of a compromise, painting, sketches, and doodles, hurdles of text, and some of 2,000 songs. His legacy also endures in his founding of Vishwa Bharati University. Tagore modernized Bengali art by spanning rigid classical forms and resisting linguistic strictures. His novels, stories, songs, dance, dramas, and essays spoke to topics political and personal. Gitanjali song offerings, Gora, Fair Fist, and Garibari, The Home and the World are his best known works, and his worst short stories and novels were acclaimed or panned for their lyricism, colloquialism, naturalism, and unnatural contemplation. His compositions were chosen by two nations as national anthems, India's Janaganamana and Bangladesh's Amar Sonhar Bangla, and the Sri Lankan national anthem was also inspired by his work. His songs Bangla Badi Bangla Chol has been adopted as a state anthem of West Bengal. Rabindranath Tagore says a very famous quotation. He says that the highest education is that which does not merely give us information but makes our life in harmony with all existence. Okay, thank you. And sorry for my upper respiratory tract infection.